with all else being equal.
It's tough to say, right? Both of these, as Maria pointed out, both of these players, well, they've actually won the last two set championship events. So they're certainly players who are at the absolute top of their game. And we'll see. This is a tough matchup to navigate for both players. There's a lot of play to these decks. These are not straightforward, just your classic kind of creature aggro decks or anything like that. They really have a lot going on with them. And it looks like we're a little bit paused here on the video stream, so we're going to pop back to us for just a minute here, Luis, so we can have a quick chat while we get that sorted out. But I want to go to what Monty said at the desk, right? The sort of standout, obvious mirror breaking type card is Showdown of the Scalds, but as we've seen, that card did incredible work, and I think it is actually the most important card there. But let's not overlook Giant Killer as an additional adventure card, which is more innkeeper food. And then the abilities that it has in this particular matchup seem very strong.
Yeah, Giant Killer is, I think, ultimately the card that Sam wants to draw the most of. It's the one that not only is it a 2-for-1 in the sense that it kills a creature and then puts something into play, it triggers Innkeeper. And we saw how effective those Giant Killers are in play. It just gives Sam such complete control over how things go in terms of offense and defense.
Yeah, we've got Embercleave was part of the equation before, and the Giant Killers do a good job against that, especially once they're on the battlefield. It's really kind of funny to think about when we first saw cards like Giant Killer, to think of the amount of impact that those are having now. When we first saw Bone Crusher Giant, we thought, well, that's going to be tough to deal with, right? It has this sort of obvious 2-drop into 3-drop kind of thing to it. But, cards like Giant Killer having a big impact on Standard, I did not expect that.
Yeah, it turns out that the adventure mechanic was quite strong, in part bolstered by Edgewell Innkeeper, but Bone Crusher Giant card stands on its own.
All right, let's see. Yeah, Bone Crusher, maybe the best card in Standard over its stretch.
Certainly one of the loudest, yeah. I would say that Bone Crusher Giant really does dominate the format in a lot of different ways.
All right, looks like we've got a mulligan here from Arne. Looking at a hand that looks not bad. It's got an Innkeeper. Oh, Arne's going to get a little greedy here.
Yeah, Arne's looking at just running out the turn 1 Innkeeper, and one of the strengths of Rimrock Knight, which is what probably I would say the weakest card in the deck, like kind of on its own merits, is that you can play turn 1 Innkeeper, turn 2 Rimrock Knight if you want to do that, and you get to take advantage of the fact that Sam can't kill a turn 1 Innkeeper on the draw before you get a card out of it. And getting just one card out of it, you're already ahead of the curve.
That's right. So he's going to lead off with the Innkeeper. Fabled Passage for Sam. He says go. Another Innkeeper off the top here for Arne. If it was good enough on turn 1, it's good enough on turn 2 here. He's just going to play it. And he has to play the red side. Or excuse me, he has to play his Skull Smashing as a land here. Passes the turn back with double Innkeeper. So Sam Pardee, already with his hands full, he's going to have to start firing off removal spells on these Innkeepers about as soon as possible.
Yeah, I like Arne's play of just running out the second Innkeeper. I think that at the very worst, you end up in this situation where Sam kills one, you still get a card out of your Innkeeper, and if Sam doesn't have a kill spell, then you end up very far ahead.
Right. And it is the very worst here for Arne. He's going to lose one Innkeeper to Fire Prophecy. And unfortunately for him, Sam discarded a card and found another Fire Prophecy. Up until then, he didn't actually have an answer for the other Innkeeper. So he'll be able to start stemming the bleeding here. And that Innkeeper is a real juicy target now, especially with the Lovestruck Beast on the battlefield. Although it looks like Sam's going to kick things off with Elite Spellbinder here rather than killing the Innkeeper.
Yeah, I think worried about a more expensive play like Esika's Chariot. Having a Chariot land there would be pretty brutal. And then, even if Arne has one more adventure creature, it's not like he's going to go off this turn. Plus, this opens the door for next turn, doing something like Fire Prophecy plus Tangled Floor Adhesion. Or because you only think Arne has maybe one more adventure creature, you just end up in a case where you just play Chariot, and you just kind of have to resign yourself to the fact that Sam's going to have an Innkeeper in play for a little while.
Well, Elite Spellbinder will perhaps keep the Edgewall Innkeeper from attacking, but that Lovestruck Beast going to rumble here in for 5 damage, and Sam's going to drop down to 13. Arne taking a look at what his options are, and he actually kind of has the combo here. He has Magda plus Jaspera Sentinel.
Despite the Gruul deck...
Go ahead, Luis.
Oh, despite the Gruul deck being quite low curve, Magda plus Jaspera Sentinel can give you a bunch of treasures, which at some point do something, whether it's activating a big Lair of the Hydra, eventually getting to 5 treasures and getting to search up an Embercleave or a Goldspan Dragon or more. It's just a powerful combination.
Well, the hits keep coming here for Pardee. He fires off Fire Prophecy and has to decide what to hit. He ultimately goes for the Innkeeper, discards the land, and finds himself a Lovestruck Beast. He also has an Edgewall Innkeeper of his own in hand, as well as the Seeker's Chariot. He even gets to follow up the Fire Prophecy with the line that you described before the Tangled Florahedron hits the battlefield as well.
Yeah, I agree with you. The hits do keep coming, and they don't stop coming. I mean, because you just get an Innkeeper going. And by drawing extra cards, then as you mentioned, the hits, they keep on coming.
Yes, they do. As we've established.
Currently, Arne actually has access to 5 mana here, thanks to Jaspera Sentinel plus Magda. So a lot of options that he can choose from. The funny thing is, killing that Innkeeper actually did negate the Lovestruck Beast. It currently can no longer attack, and that's always one of the disadvantages to running out Lovestruck Beast without making the Heart's Desire to 1/1.
Yeah, that's right. This deck does a pretty good job of providing 1/1s, but you see, Arne doesn't have any more. He's got a bunch of kind of awkward 1/2s and 2/1s, and that's left the Lovestruck Beast at home and really stem the bleeding here. Sam just taking no damage last turn, and in fact, after he runs out Edgewall Innkeeper plus the Seeker's Chariot, he's going to get in the air with the Elite Spellbinder.
This is a play that Sam may have gotten a little bit ambitious. He played an Innkeeper because Arne only had 1 card in hand, but I don't think saving the mana was that important, and he now doesn't get to draw a card off this Lovestruck Beast. So that really could matter over the course of this game.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, every single card counts in any game of Magic, but particularly when we get to this stage of the game where both players are effectively top decking, and if Sam can find one of his Showdown of the Scalds, it can just completely blow open a game, but he has to do that before Arne finds, an Embercleave or something like that to help close out this game.
And Arne just not interested in trading Jaspera Sentinel for Elite Spellbinder.
He's taken 6 now.
But I think it's because he's on the Magda train now. Double Jaspera Sentinel with 2 dwarves lets him generate a ton of treasures, and there's an Embercleave. That could definitely break things open here.
Right off the top of the library, we'll see if Sam can draw a Showdown of the Scalds to kind of complete our little our little game here. But that's one of the most powerful cards that Arne could find here, as it's going to allow him to start applying real pressure to the life total of Sam Pardee and kind of force Sam to react to him now. And
Sam has to decide, does he want to block in such a way that he could play around Embercleave? And he's going to, because now Lovestruck Beast plus Seeker's Chariot means even an Embercleave will trade for both, but you at least get the Bone Crusher off the battlefield.
Heads up play here from Sam Pardee. This attack somewhat telegraphed. And we're going to see another treasure off of Magda, and there's the Embercleave on the battlefield. That'll get thrown onto the Bone Crusher Giant, and that means that Sam Pardee is going to lose Lovestruck Beast and Asika's Chariot here. So not a fantastic exchange for him, but staying alive is pretty good, and he finds a land off the top of the library. Best thing he can do here, cast Jegantha the Wellspring.
Yeah, free 5/5's a free 5/5, and even though Sam, I suppose, had to pay 8 mana in 2 installments, he got a 5/5 without having to do really anything, because these decks don't make any decisions. They don't make very many cuts based on wanting to fit Gigante, and they just kind of get it for free.
Right. Again, the elite spellbinder is going to attack, but Arne says, okay, 6 is all you're going to get out of that thing. I'm going to block with my Jaspera Sentinel. Make one more treasure with Magda on the way out. Land go, though, from Sam Pardee. He's really begging the top of his library to give him a showdown of the Scalds. He doesn't have any card advantage engines going. There's no Innkeeper on the battlefield right now for either player. And a Jaspera Sentinel off the top for Arne doesn't really change the game too much, but he does get to keep slamming with 4-powered creatures holding an Embercleave, and that's going to be enough to get Sam's attention, no doubt about it.
Well, he's also probably just going to get a Goldspan Dragon here with this Magda. Like, it's funny, Magda, I mean, it has really taken this deck to the next level where you not only get a 2-drop that accelerates you and can kind of threaten the opponent, you also get access to this, which is it just sat around a while and all of a sudden you get a free dragon. Like that out of your 2-drop?
That's an incredible value. And once again, Sam Pardee is forced to trade off a couple of creatures here to keep his life total high and to keep whittling through the cards that can actually hold an Embercleave. But now we find ourselves in a position where Sam has to find something, and it's Fire Prophecy. He played his land last turn, so he doesn't have anything to discard to it. And that means the Goldspan Dragon's going to be plenty enough on its own. And that's going to be game number 1 going to Arne Huschenbeth. Really well done there. He has to feel like he dodged a bullet. They made it into the deep mid-game, even the late game there, and Sam Pardee just couldn't find any way to pull ahead.
A Giant Killer would have been solid, but really Showdown of the Scalds, that's where it shines. When you have a ton of mana, nothing to do, Showdown can usually kind of get you to where you want to go, but yeah, you do have to draw it for that to happen.
And that's why Sam played his land, right?
Yeah, Sam was giving up any bluff equity that wouldn't really matter because at this point, players are just not gonna give that much credence to that someone having something in hand off the top of their deck. But if you draw a Showdown, it could matter a lot. You could hit a land and some powerful spells and be 1 mana short if you didn't play your land, even when you had no cards in hand.
Yeah, he gets a little punished there as he draws Fire Prophecy, which could have potentially found something. But at the end of the day, you have to kind of pick one way or the other. Wilt off the top after 2 lands hitting the battlefield here for Sam Pardee. No plays yet for Arne. We saw Arne get off to a quick start in the first game with double Innkeeper, but nothing like that here.
So Sam doesn't have access to green mana right now, but he's got Fire Prophecy and Wilt as ways to see additional cards, or Bone Crusher Giant. So it'll be interesting to see what he chooses to play here.
Yeah, let's see what he does. Looks like he wants to Prophecy the Wolf token from Ranger class. And he's going to get rid of his Izzet's Chariot and find another green card, Lovestruck Beast. There's another Fire Prophecy. He's going to main phase cycle Wilt here, though, to try to find his land drop. Because, ooh, and right off the top, he finds exactly what he needs. He can go for Heart's Desire here and keep the train rolling. That was a close one there for Sam.
Yeah,
you don't want to miss a beat.
I mean, Sam took the conservative line there. The greedy play would have been to Bone Crusher Giant, the 2/2, and save that Fire Prophecy. But as we saw, Sam would have gotten massively punished for doing that. And now it's like, yeah, maybe he didn't have the most efficient turn 3, but he gets to go Innkeeper, Lovestruck Beast, and now he's very clearly far ahead.
All right, now he's just rolling, and look at that. Showdown of the Scalds off the top. Maybe a little early for it at this point, but he'll be really happy to have one of those in his pocket. That's a card that when it showed up in this matchup, he's had a pretty easy time of winning, and when it hasn't, it's been really close. Ooh, here's a Crowan War there for Arne, who's going to steal the Innkeeper.
That's actually the kind of like typical play in this spot because the Lovestruck can't attack past the Innkeeper. The Innkeeper just chumps, so you would lose that. And then you cut them off of drawing extra cards off Innkeeper because now Sam sure can kill the Innkeeper and attack for 6 if he wants, but he's giving up a lot of value if he does that. So
this is painful.
Yeah, he's just going to have to do it. The part of the problem, though, is a Crowan War still has a pretty good effect because next turn it's going to force a bunch of attacks, and then Sam doesn't even play Bone Crusher because it will just die to the Crowan War's 3rd chapter.
That's right. He's going to leave up Fire Prophecy or Burning Hands instead and maintain his board state. So Arne, go ahead.
Could have put a Gauntlet into his hand, but he thinks that this turn it's so likely that Arne's going to play something that Sam can use a removal spell on.
Right. And it might be one of those scenarios where if Arne doesn't, then Sam's like, great. Like, no problem. And you can see Arne going into the tank now as he's really switched roles, right? He's taken a more defensive stance this game. None of this quick start bunch of, last game by turn 4, he had 4 creatures on the battlefield. And here he hasn't even played anything yet outside of these enchantments. There's Isika's Chariot again, a slower game here for Arne Huschenbeth, but very powerful. I mean, he's played some real heavy hitters.
And Isika's Chariot, once again, showing how good it is at dodging removal. Sam can kill one of the cats end of turn. It's not a particularly enticing play.
No, it's not.
He might be forced to, though. I suppose with Burning Hands to kill the Chariot itself, maybe you don't need to, and you don't really have anything to put back with Fire Prophecy. It's just pretty brutal to effectively lose 3 mana there.
Sam's attacking with the 1/1 here as well.
Oh, he has to because of the Crone War. So,
this is a Crone War trigger, right?
I mean, I think there is even some consideration to be made for killing your own 1/1 so your Lovestruck can't attack, because right now the 3rd chapter of the Crone War is going to pop and kill the Lovestruck.
Yeah, that's interesting.
The problem there is that you don't have a 1/1 anymore, so it's not like your Lovestruck really does anything.
Right. All right, well, there's Showdown of the Scalds hitting the battlefield here for Sam Pardee. Really a great card to play, really at almost any time, but here particularly as it's going to propel him very far ahead, and he's going to pass the turn back. We'll see the 3rd chapter on a Crone War pop off here, and that's going to have Lovestruck Beast do 5 damage to itself. So a Crone War, good value. It forced Sam to use a removal spell on his own creature, and then he lost the beast, and the 1/1 token had to jump into combat as well. So that got its value, no doubt about it. The question is, can Arne capitalize on that and overcome what Sam's getting from Showdown of the Scalds?
So the final tally is that the Crone War traded for an Edgewall Innkeeper, 1/1 token, a Lovestruck Beast, and forced Sam to use Bone Crusher Giant's Stomp ability. Plus, it also kept Sam from casting a Bone Crusher Giant. So Crone War is a strong card in this matchup.
Wow, that's really good. Now, what's the tally going to be on Showdown of the Scalds? That's the question I have.
Well, I think Sam's going to get to play all 4 cards, so it's already that. And then how many +1/+1 counters he's going to get? It looks like probably 4 or 5. So yeah, not weak either.
So pretty good. We're going to see the Chariot get fired up, and we're going to see them hands come out. Burning Hands is going to burn it before it even gets to attack and can copy a token here. So down it goes. That means only 3 damage coming across thanks to the Ranger class putting a counter on one of the cats. And this is the turn where Sam now gets to untap with all the mana and all the cards available from Showdown. And he should be able to just go off here. And one of the key cards we see here is he's actually drawn his own copy of a Crone War as well.
And he led with Innkeeper to make sure that the Crone War put a +1/+1 counter on the Innkeeper thanks to Showdown. And now he has to decide, do I take the 3/3 cat or do I take the Magda?
He's going to take the 3/3 cat and Fire Prophecy the Magda. Suppose that's going to strand the Bone Crusher.
Well, the Bone Crusher was from a Stomp, so he doesn't.
That's just on an adventure.
Getting to keep it. But one of the advantages of what Sam did here by doing this main phase is that his Innkeeper is now a 3/3 so's. His cat, if Arnie's got a Bone Crusher in hand, he's got no good targets for it.
Down to 14 goes Sam Pardee, takes the 3 from the cat token. Now, not a lot of cards left here for Arne, but he's got some really important ones. He has a Crone War, which he's going to cast now, and then he has a big reload with Ox of Agonis coming as well. So this is far from over.
I'm actually a little surprised that Arne didn't go for the 3rd ability on Ranger class by using that treasure. Seems like spending 3 mana that turn would have been pretty good, because once you go to level 3, you can play creatures off the top of your deck. It's a pretty strong effect to have access to.
Yeah. And we see Arne start to protect his life total here. And another big hitter hits the battlefield here for Sam Pardee. It's Isika's Chariot.
So Sam has the ability to make a pretty cool play on his next turn. He can, in response to the 3rd Crone War trigger, tap the cat that he stole with a Crone War to crew the Chariot, and then the Crone War will kill his own cat.
Oh, that's sweet.
The thing that's tricky about this, and this is where I always get scared, if you don't set up a like full control, you won't always get priority for these sorts of things.
Right. So we'll have to see if Sam does that. We see a land on top of the library there for Arne. It's just a forest.
Oh, it looks like he had already leveled it up to 3 at some point. So, so ignore what I said there. And like you mentioned, that Ox of Agonis, it's always like the best thing to have is your like last or second to last card.
Right. Affects the board and reloads your hand. He's just got 1 land left, so he'll have to get rid of that. But the rest is going to be 3 cards going into hand. These are huge, though, and he finds the forest that we knew about, plus the Seeker's Chariot and a Yasper's Sentinel. Not great. Sentinel off the top here, and yeah. Yeah, that would have been sweet, Luis. I don't think that Sam saw it. And now he saw it.
Oh, he saw it. He just...
it just went through.
I don't know if he knew he needed a full control.
Well, that's what I mean. That's what I meant. He didn't see that part.
Yeah, so the question is, would Sam win this game if he ends up losing based on having an additional, like does Arne having an additional 4/4? Hard to tell because it's already a pretty close game. So it could easily go one way or the other based on that, but we'll see. Everything has to attack thanks to Arnie's A Crow in War, which, I mean, this card has just kind of dominated this matchup.
Right, and so far Arnie's had 2 of them. And here comes the team. A bit of a blowout here, though. At least 1 creature is going to get chumped, and another one's going to get traded, it looks like, with the Love-Struck Beast eating up a 1/1.
And you don't really need to like trade for Bone Crusher because it's just going to die. You do want to trade for the Chariot though.
Right. Sam's going to pay for Gigantha, put it into hand, and then cast a Sentinel and pass the turn back. And here's a Crow in War.
Kaboom.
Yeah, 3 creatures down. Boy, that card does do serious work in this matchup. The only bad news for Arne, he's nearly out of gas. He's got an Asika's Chariot to add to the board, which is certainly powerful and something that he wants, but then those other 2 cards are just lands.
Yeah, but with Ranger class going, Ox of Agonis in your graveyard, and not losing on board, I think Arne is significantly far ahead. And honestly, I think even without that extra 4/4 token that Sam wasn't able to kill with his own A Crow in War, I don't really see Sam dominating this game.
Okay. Well, he finds a Bone Crusher Giant off the top of the library, which is, well, he'll be happy he has that now that an Edgewall Innkeeper's hit the battlefield. Hannah Magda, wow. So this is Ranger class going off. Those are not in hand there for Arne. He's casting those from the top of his library.
Yeah. I mean, this is the Gruul deck demonstrating that, yeah, the Showdown of the Skalds and Giant Killers are great, but the Gruul deck's got its own fair share of long game plans, and Ranger class and Magda have both impressed in these last couple games.
They really have. Ranger class particularly has forced a bunch of trades from Sam Pardee and then also generated value off the top of the library for Arne. It even gave him a board state. That card, wow, that's impressive. I mean, over the course of a longer game, that Ranger class could give more value than a Showdown of the Skalds.
It's already given 3, right? It's given a 2/2 token plus those 2 creatures plus 3 or 4 +1/+1 counters, which that's probably close to another card. So yeah, we're getting pretty close to Showdown already.
Right, and in fact, very similar, right, with the counters and everything. 2 5/5 slamming in here. Sam Pardee's down to 14. Cancel that. He's down to 4. He takes it all.
I like this play from Sam. He has correctly identified that he needs to try to get this game over with. Trading off creatures isn't going to do it. He needs to try to kill Arne as fast as possible. And this is close. I mean, he can Bone Crusher one of the blockers and get Arne down to like 5, but that's just not going to do the trick.
Yeah, is the Bone Crusher on an adventure already?
Oh, I suppose it is on an adventure already, so...
It's just going to be a blocker itself.
Yeah. And at this point, Sam just doesn't really have that much hope, I don't think, because he's behind on board, behind on life, and Arnie's got multiple card advantage mechanisms going at the same time.
Yeah, now he's missed on his primary one with the Ranger class. He drew a land, and there's a land underneath.
Yeah, Arne does have that Lair of the Hydra to activate. Remember, the Ranger
Yeah.
class +1/+1 counter is pretty strong. The
Yeah,
Lovestruck Beast can't attack anymore, though you do have the ability to make a Lair of the Hydra into a 1/1 to enable your Lovestruck Beasts.
that's kind of cute. Arne can't win this turn, though, right?
It
3
doesn't.
blockers.
No, it doesn't look like it. But he's also got a Shadow Skull Smashing on top. So even when you're missing with Ranger class, it can help you plan your next turn. Ranger class is a card we're going to see a fair amount of over the next couple years in Standard here. It just got a combination of strong abilities that play pretty well together.
And really no downside to it. So Sam needs to find Showdown here. Is that the bottom line?
Showdown will give him a chance. I don't even think that is
Wow.
that likely to win him the game. I mean, I think it would.
behind.
I think it would give him the opportunity to claw back into it. But the way things are going right now, I think Arne is a huge favorite. And I think if I knew the top of Sam's deck was Shaun of the Scalds, I would still think Arne was a favorite.
Wow. That says a lot. Arne's not going to attack here. There's a Lovestruck Beast off the top for Sam.
And Arne's just not really in a position where he needs to. And the funny thing is, too, Sam's not the deck with, Goldspan Dragon and Embercleave. That's Arne. So it's not like Arne is just going to lose out of nowhere to some miracle combination of cards. He's got the ground locked up. He's got that Ranger class. The Shadow Skull Smashing is coming. He doesn't really have much that he needs to worry about. And I think it's safer to just do it this way and not lose to some strange sequence of removal spells.
In the meantime, TikTok with that Magda as well. 2 treasures on the battlefield. And now there's Yespera Sentinel to combo. Another land on the top of the library here for Arne. But he does have the Shatter Skull Smashing in hand with a lot of mana available.
It's just going to straight up kill 2 creatures, probably Giganta and Lovestruck Beast. And that's going to really reduce Sam's board position to scraps.
I think that Sam is thinking back perhaps on that equip play and maybe any other lines of play because, Sam knows what a tough position he's in here.
Oh, wow.
Wonder how close the Ox is. Is it happening?
Oh, it's happening. I mean, this is just ridiculous. Like Arne didn't need this Ox to win, but the Ox is just going to drive the point home. Like, he gets to draw 3 now. Oh, there's a Bone Crusher on top that I could play, or I could wait to use the adventure mode. I mean, who knows?
Yeah, with Sam Pardee down to just 4 life, Stomp does have a particular appeal to it.
I just don't think there's any wrong way to eat this Reese's here for Arne. Like he's going to win the game off Ranger class or Recursive Oxen or, these layers of the Hydra or this Asika's Chariot, whereas Sam's like, well, if I draw Showdown into Edgewell, Innkeeper, Lovestruck Beast, then maybe I'll delay losing by 2 turns.
Yeah, not a great place to be.
That's just how this game has played out, that Arne has gotten to keep his card advantage mechanisms on the board, whereas Sam's kind of struggled to just have board position. And those Akron Wars went a long way.
You're going to see a chump block on Asika's Chariot, but the avalanche of value continues to fall in Arne Huschenbeth's direction here as Sam Pardee. All he can do is just chump block and stare down at the land in his hand here, and looks like Arne is, in fact, going to cast. Oh, there's the Showdown. All right, well, we get to see. Another Showdown, a red cap melee, and a good game from Sam Pardee, and Arne Huschenbeth improves to 5-1 and knocks Sam down to the same record as we close out the day for those 2 players. Again, they're looking to put themselves in a position to make that run tomorrow for the 9 wins needed to make it into the last day of competition there. And Arne just took an important step. I mean, the pressure's already building here on day 1 to try to get to that 9 because that's the safe mode. Once you hit that, you're through. You don't have to worry about tie breaks or even playing out the rest of it.
Yeah, and both players in fantastic position to do that at 5-1, leading the pack. I mean, if Sam had won, he would have been the undisputed number 1 at 6-0. But even at 5-1, like you can't look back at a 5-1 and feel like you had a bad day. That said, I think Marshall, that Magic players are only as good as their last round. So, we'll see how Sam's mood is when we go to dinner later tonight.
Yeah, I think he'll be okay. He is going to kick himself for not setting a stop for that interaction. I know you caught it on
I'm
camera there. He
pretty
kind of slapped his head and he was like, "Dang it."
Yeah, I'm fairly sure that wouldn't have made the difference there. He lost by a pretty considerable margin.
Yeah, but he's a Magic player.
It's true.
And right, Magic players look at it like, hey, I need to make the best play I can at all times, and just because I happen to lose anyway doesn't excuse me. Okay, well, why don't we take a short break, and when we come back, we'll have more Challenger Gauntlet for you. Don't go anywhere. And welcome back to coverage here of the Challenger Gauntlet. We brought in the real professionals now. We've got Monty Devuti. Thanks for coming in, Monty.
No problem. I'm going to try my best to fill Luis's shoes here.
Yeah, good luck with that. He had to step away for a bit, but Luis will be back tomorrow. Don't worry. But we've got the safe and secure hands of Monty Devuti for us here as well. So we've got another match to bring you before we call it a day here. This is, of course, the last round of Standard that we're watching. And the round that we're watching is actually quite important. It's going to put whoever wins it in that tie for the lead with only one loss on the day. We've got Logan Nettles versus Noriyuki Mori in the feature. Logan is on Naya Adventures, perhaps predictable for Logan. And then Noriyuki Mori is on that kind of crazy Izzet control list. And this to me is really the matchup here, Monty, because, if Izzet doesn't have a good matchup against, these adventure decks, then what are you doing?
Yeah, absolutely. And Noriyuki Mori, I think, definitely targeting more Winota than adventures with this list that he brought. But I think the most notable thing for me is Logan and Sam Pardee tested together. They brought the same list. Noriyuki is 4-1, and his only loss was last round to Sam Pardee on this deck. So this is really a second test for him in the exact same matchup to see, can your Izzet control deck pull it off the second time around?
What do you think the chances are here, Monty? I mean, we see like a lot of ways to do 1 or 2 damage to single or multiple creatures from Mori. Is that the name of the game here?
A Cinderclasm definitely helps. It gets the board a bit under control, especially with those Edgewall Innkeepers as a worry, but that's not really the big target. What you need to be able to survive is the adventure creatures, the Bone Crusher Giants and the Lovestruck Beasts and these Asika Chariots when they come down. We see 2 copies of Disdainful Stroke and 2 copies of Essence Scatter in Noriyuki's hand, so he has some answers, but ultimately, if he can't find some card draw to go with that Expressive Iteration, he might just fall behind to what Logan is presenting.
Logan's already faced with an interesting decision point here. Does he want to put an Edgewall Innkeeper on the battlefield? You can see he's got Bone Crusher Giant, Giant Killer, Showdown of the Scalds. He's got another land there. Sentinel. He's got some really powerful stuff. You see Mori knows what Mori's next play is. He's slamming that land. Mori's just hovering that. He is ready to play it. And there it is. Land hits the battlefield. He's not going to bother to take out this Yespera Sentinel.
Yeah, I think this is something that we've seen from Noriyuki is just making sure to get the most of all of his cards and just knowing that he has to pace himself. This Jespera Sentinel without another creature on the board, not the biggest deal. Now, the Edgewall Innkeeper, that card is a big deal. You do not want Logan to be able to start drawing cards off of that.
Are we going to see Logan just fire off the Giant Killer here? Like, does he have targets that he cares about in this matchup?
No, the only creatures in Noriyuki's deck are those Bone Crusher Giants, which Logan really doesn't care about killing. He can always outscale them with creatures, or the Cure Best of Seagull tokens, which have hexproof. So I think if the Sedgewall Innkeeper had resolved, Logan would have played the Giant Killer, and he may just go out and play it anyways because he needs mana. He doesn't have a third land in his hand right now.
Well, as you mentioned, it didn't resolve. There was Essence Scatter to take it down, and now Expressive Iteration here for Mori to help him hit his land drops and continue along the value train. He's going to play Temple of Epiphany off of it while putting a mountain into his hand. And it looks like he's just mostly concerned by hitting land drops. He's actually going to keep a mountain on top of his library as well.
Yeah, that was a massive iteration, and Noriyuki just dodged a huge bullet. If Logan had drawn a third land that came into play untapped there and was able to resolve an Asika's Chariot, Noriyuki would have been incredibly behind. But because Logan found that Fabled Passage, and even though he technically has 4 mana, because he only has 3 lands that comes into play tapped, Noriyuki got away with tapping out that turn, and now he has all the mana and all the removal to counter these threats from Logan and remove these creatures and clean up the board.
A real hold your breath moment there for Mori, but he got through it. Now he's got 7 cards in hand, including 6 spells. Double Disdainful Stroke, Essence Scatter, double Bone Crusher Giant, Fire Prophecy. That is some serious answers. He just needs to make sure he doesn't fall too far behind on board.
Yeah, this is pretty close to the dream scenario for Noriyuki's deck here.
He's going to play Disdainful Stroke on Asika's Chariot. You see a Crowan War in hand here for Logan Nettles. That one doesn't look very good.
Yeah, Noriyuki just really prioritizing that now because he can just take the time to stomp a creature with that 5th mana that he deliberately kept on top last turn. He's able to play a Bone Crusher Giant while still leaving up 4 2-mana interaction spells. So he hasn't let any defenses down, but he's meaningfully developed his board now.
I'm so jealous of Mori right now. Like, this is exactly what you want to happen when you're the control player, right?
Yeah, and winning game 1 is going to be huge in this matchup because it means that Mori gets 2 chances at those post-board games. And for control decks, Post board is where you survive. Game 1, you're trying to make a deck that's good against the entire field. But post board, you get to target your deck against the specific matchup. We saw Noriyuki do that against Rogues when he took out all those Cure Best the Sea Gods, and instead Shark Typhoons came in, and he was able to take down those post board games. So taking a crucial game 1 here would be massive in his bid for that 5-1 slot overnight.
Really interesting here as well is by Mori playing out the Bone Crusher Giant, the Akroan War becomes a factor, right? Like he actually has to do something about it. And I'm looking at Logan's hand and seeing that Showdown of the Scalds too.
Yeah, it's one of those things where at some point this Essence Scatter doesn't hit any of those cards. So Noriyuki only has one more counterspell for 4-mana cards. If he uses it here on the Akroan War, that Izzet's Chariot, that Showdown are going to resolve, and that's why Noriyuki is really giving some pause here. Does the tempo of that Akroan War matter when he can just clean up this board? It doesn't. I love this decision.
Yeah, really smart play here from Mori. He's going to have to use Fire Prophecy on the Bone Crusher Giant to keep his life total up, but he can get rid of a land, and he finds a Disdainful Stroke off the top of the library as well, and now a Mystical Dispute, which in this case is a hard counter as well.
That was huge. Wow. Noriyuki had 2 threats. He doesn't know about them, but 2 threats on the other side of the board, and he only had an answer for 1, both of which would be incredibly hard for him to deal with. Now he has it.
He has an answer for either, yeah. So we're going to see Bone Crusher Giant take out Giant Killer here, I guess really just trying to stem the bleeding at this point. And now Logan has to decide if he'd like to play Izzet's Chariot, Showdown of the Scalds, or if he really wants to get cute, he can play Yespera's Sentinel and Page of Gauntlet attacks. But he's going to go for the Chariot here, and that is going to be met with a Disdainful Stroke. Wow, non-matching artwork, Mori, really? Pretty brutal.
Just sending a bit of a statement there where he doesn't really care. He's just here to play the game. And
that's right.
That was an interesting moment for Logan, because if he can resolve the Izzet's Chariot, it gives him a way to tap down that Bone Crusher Giant. We saw the interaction in the last match we saw on stream, and not return it to Noriyuki. Instead, because Noriyuki had the counter, this happened, and now counter spells ready. Threats ready, pressure online, and what is Logan doing to stem this bleeding?
He's not going to be doing enough, I'll tell you that. He's under serious pressure from these 2 Bone Crusher Giants, but beyond that, there's a Cure Best of Sea God, and a land for Mori would allow him to resolve that hammer blow and probably just seal the deal here. As it stands, not bad here for Logan, but the Essence Scatter is going to hit Lovestruck Beast, so he's going to end up with a 1-2 and a 1-1. And Logan has to look at this game and go, really? Like, you've countered every single thing I've cast. What is going on here?
Yeah, this is really the power of having 3 copies of the Disdainful Stroke in the main deck, because typically all the threats that Logan is presenting should be hard for Noriyuki to deal with and have answers to. But the way he's drawn has just lined up perfectly. And it's so incredibly hard for Logan to come back in this game when he has nothing. No cards in hand, no creatures on the battlefield, and 1 draw against 2 counterspells that he doesn't even know of.
Yeah, it's brutal. He actually had 3 mana available to pay for that last dispute and just couldn't pay it because it would leave him blockerless and dead on board. So yeah, pretty tough one there for Logan Nettles. And, you know, that does feel like one of those games, Monty, where if you're in Logan's seat, you kind of need to just tip your hat and go, okay, yeah, you had it all, right? I mean, you really just hit everything you needed right when you needed it. And there really wasn't a lot that Logan could do. He just kept putting things on the stack, and they just kept on getting countered. The one real inflection point for me was when Noriyuki decided not to counter a Akroan War and just fight the game on the fight the board with his removal spells. That paid huge dividends for him because it let it be so that he could have mana untapped, so that he could counter the Chariot as well as Showdown of the Scalds, and he was able to cruise from there.
Yeah, Noriyuki showed great decision-making in that game. He put the shields down once. Fortunately for him, Logan was not able to capitalize, and for the rest of the game, he was ready. And Marshall, typically, this is the type of experience and you would see from players that are competing in this tournament. But Noriyuki Mori, he's the most recent player we have. He started playing Magic in 2019.
What? That was like 2 years ago.
Yeah, Logan Nettles, he's been gaining experience since 1995, but Noriyuki Mori, he's had 2.5 years to get here. And I guess if you don't have time on your side, then you just brute force the experience. And he's got 25,000 games since 2019 to brute force that experience and build it up to catch up to his fellow competitors.
Man, Mori goes hard. That's insane. Okay, there's an Edgewall Innkeeper and a Giant Killer, so Logan, once again, going to lock in that value, make sure he at least gets a card back, and also, put the ball very much in Mori's court and say, you have to kill this Edgewall Innkeeper, or I'm going to really be able to go off. And as it turns out, he has the answer. He has a Cinderclasm that he can fire off here.
Yeah, Cinderclasm will get rid of the Edgewall Innkeeper. Logan does have more pressure to follow it up, but he doesn't have more card advantage. So Noriyuki now, with that Expressive Iteration in hand, can try to find lands just like last game. And if he's able to do so, that turn 4 potentially Storm's Wrath could go a long way on easing up the pressure and then put him in position to take over the game again, like we saw in that first game.
Yeah, this is really nice from Logan Nettles to keep this pressure up, because he's really forcing Mori to react to him. And Mori would love to have a turn to cast Expressive Iteration and just like kind of have a turn off here, but he hasn't been able to find it yet. He's going to get rid of Maze My Toman. Ooh, he did hit a land, just barely.
Yeah, choosing to go for the Fire Prophecy over the Expressive Iteration made it less likely that he was able to find a land, but if he was able to find it and take off the pressure at the same time is huge for him. And I think it's interesting to see how much Noriyuki in this spot is valuing Kyurabes the Sea God. He got rid of a Maze Mind Tome instead.
Here's Elite Spellbinder now from Logan Nettles. And he's looking at a bunch of cards that definitely matter here, right? The Cinderclasm has the ability to kill the Elite Spellbinder itself. So if his plan involves attacking with it a bunch of times, he's got to consider that. But you have to look at Storm's Wrath. And then, I mean, geez, Expressive Iteration is kind of Mori's way to pull far ahead as far as cards and land drops and stuff goes. So that's got to be a consideration too. And that, in fact, is what Logan goes for.
Yeah, I like that decision from Logan. There's two schools of thought there. He can either take the Storm's Wrath and say, while you're spending turns casting Expressive Iteration to find your lands, I'm going to develop the board, and you won't have that mass removal option available to you if I can develop larger creatures like this Redane, like that Bonecrusher Giant, until it's too late. Or he takes Expressive Iteration, hopes Noriyuki doesn't find more lands, and he's just able to snowball the damage that way before Storm's Wrath becomes relevant. This is a really awkward position for Logan, actually, because he knows Noriyuki has Cinderclasm in hand. If he develops Jaspera Sentinels, he just gets his board wiped by a kick Cinderclasm. If he develops Bonecrusher Giant, well, Storm's Wrath is waiting, because Noriyuki does actually have access to a second red mana thanks to that Field of Ruin.
So he can actually kick Cinderclasm here?
Yeah, he could not kick Cinderclasm that turn, but he could do it the next turn, or get the mana he needed for Storm's Wrath.
Wow, this is beautiful here for Mori. Once again, just double spelling like a madman. He's going to cast Expressive Iteration. Now, this is going to cost him 4.
Yeah, but it's 4 well spent. He gets a Bonecrusher Giant in hand, finds his second source of red mana, and now he has access to Storm's Wrath, Bonecrusher Giant. Kyurabes the Sea God is 1 land, 2 turns away, potentially, if he can find it. And for Logan, his hand does nothing. What is he going to do? Develop more creatures into the Wrath he knows about? But if he doesn't develop, this Bonecrusher Giant takes over the board. Noriyuki is making it so every turn is so awkward for Logan Nettles.
I got to say, just the Noriyuki Mori story, that is just fascinating. He's put in so much effort, and then also shows up to this tournament with a deck that's kind of not a deck, right? It's not, if you jump into the ladder, you're not going to be playing against much, Izzet control. And here he is.
Yeah, I was looking through results as I normally do. I saw third place in the Star City Games qualifier last weekend. Noriyuki Mori is at control. And the first thing I thought to myself was, there's no way he's registering this for the Challenger Gauntlet, right? Like he's just playing this in this tournament, but there's no way he's registering this deck for the Challenger Gauntlet. And then when we saw the deck lists, is it control Noriyuki Mori?
Wow, look at this. Crushing with hands here. Bone Crusher Giant double burning hands off of Expressive Iteration. And it looks like he wants the Bone Crusher.
Yeah, just being able to continue keeping this board in check. Logan isn't really presenting much pressure. 1 damage at a time. The Bone Crusher Giant in hand, representing an extra 2 to the face. But something we heard Luis talk about in the last matchup between Gruul and Naya. Naya doesn't have Embercleave. Naya doesn't have Goldspan Dragon. So you're not getting those big bursts of damage that you would be getting from Gruul Adventures, which means Noriyuki can feel safe that he's not just going to get run over out of nowhere here.
Cute play there by Logan Nettles. He used his own stomp on his own creature in response to stomp from Mori, which means that the stomp gets countered, and the Bone Crusher Giant ends up in the graveyard here for Mori rather than on an adventure.
Yeah, it's one of those plays that isn't flashy, but it's really great in this position when Logan can't afford to just have a creature picked off and then a 4/3 come down. It would take way too many of his resources to deal with that 4/3.
Wow, look at that. Midnight Clock off the top. Auto Tapper tried to get him, though. He needs double red available, but he noticed it, so he gets to play the clock, and then he can Storm's Wrath here as well. You know, Logan Nettles knew about this and kind of had to play something else, right? 1 damage a turn is certainly not going to get the job done, so we had to walk into the Wrath here.
Yeah, Marshall, you don't play 25,000 games in 2 years, and get got by the auto tapper. Maybe in the first 5,000 games you get got a decent amount. By game 15,000, the auto tapper is working for you now. It's not the other way around.
That's right. You're totally right, Monty. It's funny. It's like, you know, these players have a 63% win rate against the field, but Mori has a 100% win rate against the auto tapper, just never getting got.
And just brutal draws for Logan Nettles. And if Mori finds a land at any point here, there's an 8/8 hexproof creature coming down, and Logan no longer has a wilt to get rid of Kiora Best the Sea God.
That's right. He had to use it on the clock there. And there's a land off the top of the library here, and we're going to see Kiora Best the Sea God not only go onto the stack, resolve, and there's the 8/8 as well. Oh boy, Ox of Agonis off the top though for Logan, and perhaps a flash of hope here.
It's a start. 3 new cards have to be 3 really good cards. Those are some good cards, but now Logan is going to have his board tapped down. He's going to be taking 8. Whatever he develops, he's putting at risk of giving to Noriyuki next turn. And Marshall, I don't know how much Sultai you've played, but there used to be a pretty cool interaction in the Sultai Ultimatum decks where your Asika's Chariot could make more Kiora Best the Sea God tokens.
Oh yeah, I'm into it.
Ooh, and with that Hall of the Storm Giants on the battlefield as well, Noriyuki can actually just present 15 damage here. Logan's don't untap.
Wow. When Mori goes to close out a game, he does it in style here. Bang, bang, down to 5 goes Nettles, who just has nothing and can't really commit to the board either.
Yeah, whatever you commit, you're risking one of the things you commit to the board being stolen. Now, Noriyuki will have to pick something with Kiora Best the Sea God. With that Lovestruck Beast, Logan can actually put a decent number of creatures on the board here.
Yeah, he's actually going to have 4 creatures, and, you know, if one of them goes, he could even jump in the Chariot. There's saw it coming off the top of the library.
I would love to see...
Dude, steal the Chariot. Steal the Chariot. Do it.
I think that might be the line. Logan has gone too wide on this board. I don't think there's a sequence of 3 things that you can answer between the Kiora Best the Sea God, the Bone Crusher Giant, and the Burning Hands that would get lethal damage through here.
Oh my! I want to see Krakens all over this board here for Mori. Do it.
eye in the graveyard, seeing what Logan has. How close is he to escaping that Os of Agonis? That's the big question. Logan is once again out of cards in hand. So one of the big ways that Logan can come back into this is if he's just like, all right, I'm going to attack with my Ox. Either you take 4, or if you put it to the graveyard and Logan has enough cards, he's going to escape it and draw 3 new ones.
All right. He gets to pass with Saw coming available as well, so this can't go too terribly wrong.
Yeah, pretty safe turn for Noriyuki. I do like attacking. If he allows Logan to just pass back that turn, then Noriyuki is falling behind. As things stand, with Assad coming out of Burning Hands in his hand available to him, things can't really go too wrong. So he's forcing Logan to sacrifice a creature here, and that's going to help as Noriyuki continues trying to push for lethal.
It's funny because the only 1/1 over there for Logan is that Lovestruck Beast token from Heart's Desire, so he may actually be better off blocking with the 2/2 if he wants to. I'm assuming that Embercleave is part of a win here or something, if there is one.
Yeah, Logan does have that Lair of the Hydra available to him, so not overly sad to get rid of his 1/1. Can still animate the land and use it to enable the Lovestruck Beast, but it's not a great position when you're using your mana to create a 1/1 land just so your Lovestruck Beast can attack.
Logan also considering the precarious option of triple blocking here.
You can't really let that 8/8 survive if there's an Asika's Chariot on the board. Like,
right.
That is a recipe for disaster next turn, which is why Logan is thinking so hard about this attack. Is Noriyuki risking his 8/8 if he doesn't have a removal spell here?
And ultimately, Logan says, yeah, you wouldn't do that. You wouldn't let me have it. Oh, cancel that order. The triple block's coming here, Monty.
Marshall, that might have been a little too soon.
Oh, he did it. He triple blocked. He decided I have to go for it, but Burning Hands is going to kill one of the blockers and make this a 3-for-1. Thank you very much, says Noriyuki Mori. Logan must have just decided there is no way for me to win the game unless this happens, because he certainly knew the risk he was taking there.
Absolutely, but Noriyuki could not cast that Burning Hands fast enough, and that's the benefit of that attack from him, because he's continuing to force Logan into uncomfortable positions. That's been the theme of the match that we've seen in both of the last 2 games, is that Noriyuki keeps asking questions where no matter how Logan Nettles chooses to answer, the outcome is poor for him, which is part of the appeal to bringing this Izzet control deck to this creature-dominated metagame.
Logan, he finds a land off the top of the library. He does have that layer sitting back there. But I mean, if we see Mori fire up the chariot and copy the Kraken token, how is he ever coming back from that?
That's pretty close to GG. I think Logan playing that land is a sign that he's not likely to be able to present any sort of lethal here. So might just be attacking with the Lair of the Hydra and only the Lair of the Hydra. And for Noriyuki, this is a decision of, am I going to just chump this here? And I think if he doesn't chump it, he's 1 damage short of presenting lethal, thanks to Hall of the Storm Giants as well as that Kraken token. So it makes sense for him to just throw his giant under the bus and say, I'm not going to put myself in position where this game can suddenly get stolen from me.
So I heard you like Kraken tokens.
Oh
my God. Another one that can crew up and then make another one. There's going to be 3 8/8s on the battlefield here for Mori.
Way to make it 3.
Wow. Buy one, get one free there on the Kraken tokens for Noriyuki Mori as he slams in, forcing some action. I wonder how many cards in the yard here for Nettles.
I believe it's enough now, and that is the risk Noriyuki takes with that attack, but Logan has to spend some mana to bring that Ox back, and Noriyuki's saying, however many creatures you put on the board, this Cure of Esthesiga's second chapter is going to tap them down, so how are you going to find 3 instant speed ways to deal with these Krakens? You've got one in the lair of the Hydra, where are the other 2 coming from?
Yeah, it's impossible, right? You can't, they're 8/8s, they have expert, like what are you going to do? And that's going to be a good game from Logan. Nettles, and a decisive victory here for Noriyuki Mori, really putting his mark on this